Tracking gusty winds and heat risk ahead for this new work and school week. A lot of weather changes unfolding as we head through this first week of May. I'm ABC 10 Chief Meteorologist Monica Wood. So we're really seeing that transition period out of more rainy and cooler weather into the drier and warmer conditions as well. So we'll be tracking a couple of different weather elements through the week. We kick it off with our weather impact alert for the valley on our Monday with wind gusts at 40+ miles per hour. Trees with branches coming down have been a problem for the past 24 hours. All the pollen floating around with big impacts for allergy sufferers and, of course, driving, especially high-profile vehicles over some bridges and overpasses, as well as some of the causeways throughout the region. So be alert when outdoors and just be aware that might need to change some of those outdoor plans, especially if you do suffer from allergies or it's just a bit of a struggle to be outdoors for today. We've seen those peak wind gusts come in at about 25 to 40+ miles per hour already, especially west of I-5. That's where it's going to be most problematic throughout the day, and it will continue until 8 o'clock for tonight. The reason being is we saw that weak little wave move through over the weekend. That has since moved off to the east. Behind it, in the wake, we've got that building ridge of high pressure, still dealing with some mountain showers as well as the desert southwest with some showers for today, pulsing through parts of Southern California. But it's these two different air masses that really create the opportunity for those offshore winds to develop, as well as the north winds throughout the valley. Those compress, they warm. During deep into this summer and early fall, those become very dangerous fire winds. Right now, soil moisture is still pretty good. That's not to say that we couldn't see a brush fire, but it's a little bit on the lower threshold for that risk. Our wind advisory, as I mentioned, goes through 8 o'clock for our Monday. That we'll see that through the Sacramento Valley, the Delta, as well as the Carquinez Straits, and that will extend all the way north as well. It expires a little bit earlier, but we're going to hang on to those winds a little bit deeper through the Sacramento capital region. So for the valley, it is a weather impact alert day due to the gusty winds. And then we'll be tracking the potential for another weather impact alert a little bit deeper into the work and school week, that being because of the heat risk heading our way. Just a caveat here, and just to set the stage, I know these aren't going to be extreme conditions compared to what we see over the summer, but it's much normal than average, and that is a little bit different for the body to adjust to. By the time we get into June, July, temperatures that I'm going to be showcasing aren't really going to be that extreme, but it's this early in the season where we haven't seen too much of this heat that it just takes us a little bit of time to adjust. So again, we're going to continue these extended forecasts on ABC 10 Plus. That's our streaming channel. Make sure you download it for free wherever you stream on TV. On there, we also have weather explainers, weather and climate specials. It's a great tool to have as we head into the heat season and all year long as well. All right, let's take a look at those wind gusts. And again, they are going to be coming down for tonight, but they're still out of the north to northwest. This is setting the stage for some of the warmer conditions to settle in, especially under a ridge of high pressure. Now, we'll see a little bit of a cooler weather pattern develop midweek because we start to see the winds shift ever so slightly. Tomorrow morning, they're still out of the northwest, roughly at about 15 to 25 miles per hour. And then they will start to calm, but they'll be replaced by an onshore flow. So we'll see immediate cooling right along the coast and for the Delta region, as well as the west side of the valley. That will generally cool things down just a little bit into our Wednesday. Here's the reason why. For Tuesday, we're still hanging on to those northwest winds because we're still under that ridge of high pressure. There's another low kind of replacing the one that moved through over the weekend. So we still have the opportunity to see some northwest winds. Not quite as strong as what we're seeing for our Monday, but still those dry and warming winds. Now on Wednesday, as this low moves in closer to the Pacific Northwest and Canada, we'll get a bit of that onshore flow. So kind of a disruptive pattern for the middle of the week in terms of what we're starting off the week with. And a nice little break for those of us, again, that suffer from allergies. But here it comes right back. By Friday, we get the much warmer weather. That high pressure ridge will settle in. It's sinking, warming air, a more stable environment. And even though we see this low on the approach, we're going to be under that ridge at least through the start of the weekend before we start to see some much cooler weather ahead next week. So transitioning through the week, we get into that heat risk on Friday. It's in the moderate range, but that will affect most individuals sensitive to heat, especially those without effective cooling and or adequate hydration. Just want to make sure to optimize the cooling overnight. Maybe open those windows if it's safe to do so. Cool your house. And then once the sun comes up, shut everything down, close the drapes, the blinds, what have you, and use those fans when you're in a room so that they cool you. And try to keep the house a little bit on the cooler side to avoid using our ACs too early, even if you have that AC. Saturday still in that moderate heat risk, but we're starting to see more of a confined area. It's not as widespread, and that will lead us to a cooler weather pattern. So this is our first kind of pulse of 90-degree heat. Just a couple of heat safety reminders as we transition out of a more active wet weather period into more that we deal with heat. Look before you lock. Check on kids, pets, elderly that may be left behind in the car that may not voice their concern about being left behind, especially as we start to see a change in schedules, perhaps schools getting out, or there may be just a shift in sports activities where it's out of the normal habit, right? Shade and hydrate. Take breaks every half hour, and then sunscreen and activities. Make sure to wear that SPF 30 plus and plan for morning activities where it tends to be much, much cooler. All right, May has been a bit on the warm side. Nothing extreme, no records or anything like that, because this time of year we're really approaching those record highs in the 100s. Not quite there yet, but we're getting awfully close. So over the weekend, we kind of had a mixed bag. We had the cooler weather on Saturday with highs in the 70s, and then we were right back into the low 80s. Average high this time of year right around the upper 70s. So again, those 80s are going to be unseasonably warm. We've seen some warm temperatures. May isn't off to the warmest start that we've seen, but the top 5 warmest highs are just in the rearview mirror. April 30th, we hit that high at 87 degrees, so not quite at 90 degrees. And through April and even March, we had some 80s in there. Downtown climate data is ending, so Sacramento Executive Airport is the official site and will continue to bring those temperatures to you as we continue to monitor some of the heat that we deal with for the summer months. So the average first days, now this is pretty interesting, average first 90-degree day for Sacramento Executive happens to be May 8th. We may be right on target for that average first day. We were a little bit ahead of pace for that average first 80-degree day, but also for the 85-degree day, those generally don't really catch people off guard too much because those are still within a threshold that it's manageable. It's the 90, 95, even 100-degree days that really start to remind us that we are in that type of climate where we have a wet season, a dry season, and that dry season is hot. So we're just around the corner from seeing some of those 95 and 100-degree days as we've flipped the calendar to May. This is also the time that we start to edge towards that peak time of year where we have our average monthly high peak out in July at 92.6. Now, that's not to say that we won't get those 100+ degree days in August and September. In fact, the hottest day that we've had on record for downtown Sacramento happened to be in September. So it's certainly possible as the overall air mass starts to warm. It's just easier to get things cooking here in the valley. As we start to head into some of the warmer conditions, many people are heading to our beautiful waterways, and that includes our reservoirs, which are very full right now and chilly. These are fed by snowmelt, so just be aware you're going to encounter some very cold temperatures. We're nearly at capacity for all of our northern reservoirs, and even the Central Sierra reservoirs and Southern Sierra reservoirs are starting to fill nicely as well. Again, fed by Sierra snowmelt, which happens to be pretty at a pretty good clip right now, outpacing our average. So we are going to see those filling pretty rapidly here. There are some releases being made, but again, everything looking great in terms of water supply. But again, It is going to be quite cold and high for our reservoirs as well as our rivers. I'll take a look at those in just a second, but you can see how everything starts to climb here. Here's the average for filling those reservoirs. It peaks right around mid-May, early June, and that's pretty much where we are right now. At that point, we'll start to rely on more water coming from our surface supplies like our lakes, our reservoirs, and then we'll draw from that, bringing it down by the time we get to the end of September. A cold water fact, and this is super important. This time of year, we get so many calls about rescues and unfortunately recovery efforts that are having to be made in our very cold, fast, and high area waterways. Roughly 20% of people who fall in cold water die in the first minute of submersion due to cold water shock. The cold water can literally just almost immobilize a person. Some of the precautions, because it is going to be warm, our waterways are a great way to cool off if we do it safely. So near water, wear a life vest. Keep close eyes on children. Avoid alcohol. And again, be mindful that cold water will impact breathing. We have strong currents and tough rescues right now. So if it's tough for somebody to get out of, you can imagine what it is for rescuers who are trying to do the same. And these cold water impacts, it doesn't take much. When we're talking below 77 degrees, breathing is affected. And I'm talking water temperature, not air temperature. 70 to 60 degrees, it's difficult to breathe. By 50 to 60 degrees, begin to lose control if you're not really accustomed to some of that cold water. Once it gets below 40, no breathing control and you lose control of those limbs. So where do things stand right now? These are our river temperatures, and we're right in that threshold where breathing is very much impacted. For the Sacramento River, we're at 64, the American below Folsom at 55 degrees, where releases are happening from that cold snow melt that's coming into that lake. San Joaquin in Stockton, 64, Tuolumne at LaGrange, 52. For the Sierra and foothill waters, 45 to 50 degrees. So if you're doing a hike up in the foothills, just be mindful if you slip or you think taking a little cool dip might be nice. It is very brisk up there. And again, very fast waters moving through the foothills. Lake Tahoe water temperature in the 40s. Not too many people dipping their feet in Lake Tahoe right now. Okay, inside a car, as I mentioned before, change of routine, perhaps school's getting out, there's a field trip, or just running errands, trying to help people out. Within 10 minutes with the outside temperature at 90 degrees, that car temperature is up to 109. In just 20 minutes, it goes up to nearly 120 degrees. At 30 minutes, it's over 125 degrees, and then 60 minutes, over 130 degrees. It's something to keep in mind as we deal with these warmer temperatures. Now, that being said, this is going to be very short-lived. We're right back to a likely cooler setup throughout the state. Likely wetter, but it does appear, as I've been tracking some of the latest weather models, that this really is going to hug parts of the upper elevations and the Pacific Northwest. So the valley's going to struggle to pull in any measurable precipitation the way things are playing out right now. Highs in the meantime in the 60s for the Sierra for today, 70s and 80s down low. Across the coast, our highs are in the 60s, but once we head inland, we are in the 80s as we head into our Tuesday forecast. But again, we take a little dip on our Wednesday as we see that nice onshore flow coming in. Now, that doesn't really impact elevations. It's mostly for the valley and the delta. So you'll see temperatures don't fluctuate too much once we get into the foothills and the Sierra. They do, though, for the coast. Highs are going to be dropping into the 50s, and then we're right back to almost 70 by the time we get to Friday. And we'll see that play out through our forecast throughout the valley. A little bit cooler on our Wednesday, and then we're right back to some of that warmth building in Friday and Saturday with highs near 90. Cooler for Mother's Day, a high of 85, and then 70s ahead by next week.